On 25th of July, 2019, about 1:30 a.m., on a high altitude of Himalayan mountains, there I was, gasping harder to keep myself alive, hoping that I'll make it to see the next sunlight. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for that vivid introduction. Dear guest, my fellow Toastmasters, very good evening. It all began with a phone call, followed with an itinerary my very best friend. You have bailed out on enough trips already. You're coming this time. That's it. And frankly speaking, I was all reluctant and confused as I had few projects to hand over at that time. And also I did not know whether my leaves would be approved. Luckily, the next morning I went up to my manager and my leave got approved without wasting further time. I booked my ticket and in a day's time, there I was, flying to the India's capital city, New Delhi. It was a euphoric sense of joy. The weather was sweet. It was sometime in the evening. The minute I stepped out of the plane, the immense surge of dopamine took over my brain. That's when I knew I was pumped up for the journey. The next morning, me and my crew, we went to pick up my rental bike, which was 600cc Himalayan off-roading bike. And that was going to be my companion for the next 15 days through my thick and thin. Without wasting further time, we started our journey, making our ways through the busy traffic of Delhi to the first stop, which is Punjab. And my sole intention was to visit my aunt, just stop by and say hello. And let me tell you, it was past 10 p.m. Right before we could reach our first stop, my bike broke down in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to tell you, I was a little terrified by the fact that it was close to midnight and I was stranded in an isolated place and we couldn't fix the bike until the next day. But you know what? Out of nowhere, a kind stranger helped. He offered help. He even dropped us to a hotel as a safety concern. And we were so lucky to have him that day. The next hurdle was when we entered Jammu. We were welcomed by the torrential downpouring and all the streets were flooded by the water, gushing down the hills, and rock as big as rugby ball were rolling over my feet. Looking at the scene, I was disheartened and I thought, that's going to be the end of the story. This is it. But later we all teamed up, helped each other on, one by one, until we could move on and get over the hurdle and move on with the green valley of a beautiful place called Kashmir. You know what? With the cold wind in my head, greenery everywhere, sound of the brook by the road. Man, what more could I ask for? On the seventh day of my journey, when I finally reached one of my favorite places, which I'd always dreamt of, a place called Kardungla, which was seated at the 18,000 feet altitude. Let me tell you, it is as high as 6 times the height of Burj Khalifa and 19 times the height of Bahrain's tallest harbor tower. Let me tell you, it was a breathtaking moment. And after we briefly finished our visit, and since it was getting a little darker, we started our journey back home where we had to pick our flight. Ignoring the fact that there was no hotels or restaurants, On a long stretch of land, we kept riding our journey back home with all our spirits high as eagle until the temperature started dropping below zero. And that is when everything started getting worse. And considering the fact that I was all drenched with the ice melted water which we rode on, I started falling sick. And we had to immediately stop and find a place where we could rest. And luckily, we could find an abandoned house where we could rest. It was sometime after midnight when I started shivering. I was crumbling. And then I was gasping harder to keep myself alive. The thing about the place in a high altitude like that is that there is scarcity of oxygen. And if you're not prepared well, and if you're not acclimatized to the atmosphere, you could die. But fortunately, luck got us, and I pulled out through the night. And we also could manage to find a military official who could help us get back on our wheels, and we got back home. So ladies and gentlemen, 7 minutes is not enough for me to tell my entire journey of 3,000 kilometers. But there are 3 memorable lessons that I've learned, which I would like to share it with you. Number 1, it's not always how it's shown in the media. You're bound to find very good-hearted people on your way. Always look for it. Number 2, no matter how much hurdles you're gonna face, never give up. Always team up, get united, help each other, and keep going. Number 3, no matter how much strong and smart you think you are, take a break, relax, analyze the risk, prepare. If you're comfortable, then proceed, because it's a matter of life and death. You don't have to go to Himalayan trek to experience the adventure of life, but always remember, life itself is an adventure. Make sure you make the best out of your life, never give up, and live your life gently and make good memories. Back to you, Master of Ceremonies.